This is Israeli Technology Founders Speak, a podcast of conversations with successful Israeli high-tech and biotech entrepreneurs. With your host, Avraham Hermon. Rinat Hitelman is the co-founder of Wide Therapy, an online platform that empowers neurodiverse children to practice and master life skills like potty training, transitions, or medical checkups by seeing themselves succeed in personalized digital simulations before applying those behaviors in real life. Avraham sat down with Rinat in the offices of JMB Davis Ben-David to discuss how she came up with the idea, how she met her co-founder, got funded, the challenges she has faced, tips for startup founders, and much more. This podcast is a creation of JMB Davis Ben-David, an intellectual property law firm serving clients around the world. You have great innovations. We keep them safe. It's not enough to just have a great startup idea or innovation. If you don't legally protect your innovations, products, and brand, anyone can claim them as their own. We keep your great innovation secure. Learn more by going to jmbdavis.com. That's jmbdavis.com.
Thank you, Rinat, for joining us in the office of JMB Davis Ben-David here in Modi'in. And we're here today to talk about Wide Therapy, company that you were involved in founding. Can you tell me what problem does Wide Therapy solve?
Wide solves the fundamental problem of teaching life skills to children with special needs. When I say special needs, I mean autism, ADHD, rehabilitation needs, and even children that are called neurotypical. In order to learn a skill, any skill in life, you need to practice it, right? Mm-hmm. When a child is learning to walk, he walks. He needs to take one step and another step and another step in order to practice and make perfect and to begin to run and so on. With children with special needs or diverse special needs, a lot of times that is a problem. It might be inherent to the condition itself. It might be because, for instance, rehabilitation needs, it's because the child went through a lot in his life and he's now scared. Or it just may be for reasons we don't always know. So what Wide does is being able to teach those life skills in a digital way so children can practice them digitally and then they're able to apply it simply in real life.
Sounds interesting. Your background is in therapy relating to autism. How did you come to this idea? How was it born and how did you get involved in it?
I enrolled to my MA in autism in Bar-Ilan University this was about almost 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I met there who was my founding partner, Ronnie Singler. So we are the founders of Wide. While we were waiting, we had an opportunity there to go on to our PhD. And while we waited it was Corona, and while we waited for the approval of our PhD, she invited me to see her classroom. And I think I was also a mother to very young children at that time. Mm-hmm. And I was also working only in kindergartens with children on the autism spectrum. And suddenly I saw what happens to children who are 3 when they become 17. It's hard to imagine when you think about your own children, what are they going to look like when they're 17? My then 3-year-old is now 13 and he's taller than me, but I don't think I could ever imagine that when he was 3,
Sure.
How that's going to look like. So what happened is she invited me to her classroom and we saw a 17-year-old on the autism spectrum who had difficulty with transitioning from one classroom to the other. And when I say difficulty, he was tantruming on the floor. And then I told Ronnie that when they're 3, and they're tantruming on the floor because they're having difficulties with transitions, somebody will pick them up and just take them inside. And you can't do that with a 17-year-old. And we started thinking about how can we help this 17-year-old when he's younger to master this skill? Because when you think about transitioning, and I'm just talking about physically going from one place to another, think about how many times we do that a day. We don't even count.
Right. Something we don't think about if you're, I guess, neurotypical, right?
Exactly. And do you know it's more than 20% of your day? Just the physical. I'm not even talking about the mental transition. Like when I'm talking to you or if I'm going to talk to someone else in a minute, that's also a transition. I mean, really talking just the physical transition. Think about it. You came to meet me downstairs. We came up here in the elevator.
Yeah.
I can count 4 transitioning there, and we didn't even think about it.
Sure.
But imagine you're having difficulties with 20% of your day, real difficulties. You can't do it. So just imagine what that day looks like.
Wow.
That's what we started with.
Can you explain a little bit how the technology works?
So we started out with an idea that was a therapeutic idea. We said, how can we teach children life skills? We wanted to teach them something that they can learn on their own at all functioning level, at all diagnosis, and with all learning abilities. And we wanted them to be able to learn it without a therapist present or with minimal therapy present. And the idea is there is just a shortage of therapists worldwide. Okay, it's not a problem here in Israel. It's a worldwide problem. There's just not enough people to take care of the children.
Was it inspired by COVID epidemic also, and being distant from therapists or potential therapists?
Absolutely. One of the things that happened during COVID is that we got videos that parents sent us how the children are doing at home, and you absolutely had nothing to do to help them except guide them from a distance. And guiding parents can get you so far, because if you can't really help them, there are issues with implementing that at home, with giving them more tools. Telehealth, when you go into a screen and try to teach a 3-year-old life skills through the screen, it's not simple, just from the attention even point of view. We actually began with Wide a bit before COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, we understood how crucial it is for children to be able to learn. But even before that, the truth is that the shortage of therapists is something that everybody's dealing with. When you look here at the HMOs, there are sometimes year-long of waiting lists. When you look, certainly in the US, we're talking about a year for diagnosis and another year for therapy, at least.
Wow.
And we're talking today about the numbers, that's 1 to 6 children who are diagnosed with special needs. If we look just at the autism spectrum, the CDC just got out the latest edition. We're talking about 1 to 31. When we started Wide, it was 1 to 54. So you can see where this is going.
So is it more diagnosis or more cases of autism?
I suppose it's probably both. Nobody can really say why the prevalence is rising in this way. It's probably more parents are much more alert than they used to be in terms of what to look for. That's on the one hand, but there is a rising prevalence anyway. It might be environmental. It's probably at the end of the day everything together. But this is the reality that we're facing.
So then what you're doing is essentially allowing kids to learn and practice new skills by working opposite a computer.
Well, the idea was to show them themselves, perform the life skill in a digital way, in a way they will understand. That's what we did. So we took pictures of the child himself and Israeli environment. We took principles of how you teach skills in real life, and we implemented them in a digital way. We actually got a patent on our digital method of intervention in this way, the way that children learn the life skills. And when we started off with this idea, and we said, okay, let's start giving it to kids. Let's see what they say, how they behave, what they do. And actually, the first girl we ever gave Y to, we thought it would work just with transitioning the physical from one place to another when we started out. And I had this girl in my kindergarten that was supposed to go to first grade, and she was not toilet trained yet. Now, in Israel, when children are not toilet trained and they go to first grade, they usually can go just to certain types of school and not to others that might be more fitting to their abilities. So it's really crucial for children to be potty trained by the age of 6, specifically in Israel. But I believe they should be potty trained as early as possible anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And when we started giving Y to her, she saw herself perform this skill successfully. And this was after 2 years of failed attempts. She was a child under my care, and I couldn't potty train her. And I say I'm a very good therapist. I used to potty train most of the kids. And when I wasn't successful here, it really bothered me, because I understood that I don't have a solution to this issue. And as children grow up, if they don't learn these essential life skills, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to teach them.
Right.
And we gave White to her, and she was potty trained in 26 days.
Wow.
Which was for us was like, okay, what did we do here? How did this happen? And we started just giving it to more children with different skills, with different abilities and so on. And after a few months, when we started seeing real results, we decided, Ronnie and myself, we need to do something. Okay, we have this method. We found it. Now what? So at first we said, let's open up a nonprofit and give it to the entire world for free and so on. And then somebody told us, yeah, but it's technology. You need to develop it. And I said, oh, yeah, you're right. We need to pay the developer. Yeah, that's important. And then we decided to go for a more sustainable financial model so we'll be able to sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
And we opened up a startup. That's what we did.
Okay. So you connected to the Aline Hospital in Jerusalem. So I'm familiar with the Aline Hospital and their Alinovation program. Can you tell us a little bit about how that program has helped you and what that program is? Actually,
Aline was our first, one of our very first partners. And they were really one of our first believers that said, let's try this. It actually happened during COVID. I wasn't there for the first meeting. Ronnie was. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first conventions. They were right after they opened up a little the country during COVID. And Ronnie came to this. It was supposed to be a big conference, but actually nobody came. It was Ronnie. It was Aryeh Melamed from Alinovation and someone else from the bank. There were 3 people that attended that conference at that time.
What's the minimum number of people to call it a conference? I guess the 3 is probably it, right?
That's a good, yeah. Are we in a conference now? That's a good question. And Ronnie pitched them, she said, this is why, this is what we do. Up until that point, we didn't think or we didn't understand that white could be useful for children who are not on the autism spectrum. We tried it just with children with autism. And then Aryeh, who is the head of Alinovation, told us that we don't have autism in Aline, but we do have rehabilitation needs. How about coming in and trying this out? Because the concept should work.
Right.
That's what we did. We said, okay. And we started
I guess it worked.
And it did. Mm-hmm. It did. We had a wonderful pilot there with the real results. One of the cases that we did there, our first cases, was one that I really remember very well, was a very young girl. She was 3.5, I think, then. She had multiple leg surgery since she was, I was going to say since she was very young, but since she was 3, so she was very young. Mm. When she was finished with the medical procedures, the doctor said she can walk physically, but she would absolutely refuse to for months. Okay. She wouldn't do it. Now, probably because it was attached to pain, probably because she was scared, probably because there's a lot of reasons why children do, but she wouldn't. She just crawled. She wouldn't stand up on her feet. And one of the pilots we did there at the beginning was showing her herself walk.
Interesting.
That's what we did. So we started showing her like little distances from like this table to this table in her classroom and from that to, and so on.
And that can encourage the kid to actually try it. Then once they visualize it and see it, they can do it.
We took it really a step further. It's not only the visualization of it, it's actually they believe they do it. That's the idea. We had children that said, I'm doing this. I did this already because they saw it digitally.
Okay.
And because they saw it digitally in the way we teach them, it's like it's already been done. It's just a matter of implementing it in real life. And that's what she did. And 6 weeks later, she was running down the halls.
Impressive.
It was it was one of our exciting cases there. And that's a relationship, and that's how it began. And we're working there still. Today, we're doing 2 main use cases in Aline, and actually 2 main use cases in Wide. The first is daily living skills, like transitioning, like potty training, feeding, and so on. And we do a lot of other behaviors as well. And the other is compliance with medical procedures. We saw that if we can show children themselves complete the medical procedures they need to go through, they will do it more easily in real life. So those are the 2 use cases we're doing there in Aline and also in other places.
You're our first company that has been through Alinovation. So can you tell us a little bit about the framework and the program that they offer?
Well, Alinovation is really a part of Aline that the main focus is to help startups implement technologies in the real world settings.
So you're talking about startups that are focused on rehabilitation primarily?
Yes. Focused on rehabilitation. They might be medical needs. But the first is to benefit the children in the hospital. Aline is a hospital for children. It's very unique in that sense. It's not a big hospital where there's a department for children. It's just made for children. When you even go in there, you see that. I encourage everyone to go and see the wonderful work they do there, because it doesn't feel like a hospital, the way it's designed and the way children are treated there. So I think that is something very unique to Aline. And I think that was for us the magic there, that we also wanted to work. And what they do is they help you with a design partnership. That means that they help you also from the startup point of view, talking to investors, meeting other stakeholders, other organizations. They are referred to as a point of excellence. That means that if we piloted there and now we want to pilot with another place or another hospital, so we can refer always to Aline and to talk about what we're doing there and the work that we're doing there. And the product itself is tested there with the team, because they have the experience that I'll give an example. When we started out with Wide, it was very basic. We didn't have like this technology. We had what's called an MVP. It was just a minimal product. And we developed it together with Aline. We took it to the children. We saw how children use it there. We saw how the therapists use it there, how the team uses it there. And we just iterated the product according to the needs and how it works in a real life setting.
Wow. I have a good experience with Aline because I was involved about 10 years ago in a fundraiser that they do every year, which is
the bicycle.
And I remember after riding a good 40, 50 kilometers, getting to the hospital and seeing the smile on the faces of the kids when you arrive. It's just an unbelievable feeling. So I'm assuming you also feel certain satisfaction working with children and seeing, hey, this works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your investment. Where does your investment come from?
We began with the Israel Innovation Authority. They were the one who are biggest investors up until today. So we were very lucky to get funding from the Israel Innovation Authority that believed in us and really trusted us to work with the technology, and also helped us financially with the pilot with Aline Innovation and the trials that we were doing there. And right now we're still funded by them, and now we are working towards angel investors and other forms of investing in that sense. But the world of investing is changing right now. We're going through a big change. The startups are going through a big change right now. So I think we're now very focused as a company, less on the investment side and more on the traction side, to work as much as possible with organizations and to benefit as many children as we can.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about intellectual property. You had mentioned you have a U.S. patent that's granted?
Yes, a U.S. patent that was granted, and one, I hope I'm saying this correctly, a PCT. That's also an international application. And how does your IP impact your business strategy? That's a good question. I think with Wide, it's a unique case because we really invented something. That means that we're creating it also as we go, because we're learning from the children. How are they using it? What really works? What doesn't work? So we had the basic idea that is still looks the same as it looked in our MVP for the child itself. But as we went along, we started to understand other things, like if there are complex skills they need to learn. For instance, if you go for a medical procedure, it's a 24-hour procedure. So it's not just a skill. You need to go through a few different skills during the 24 hours. So our IP has always guided us in the way that how we implement Wide, and is the business strategy. It is really, I think, our most prized possession, because in our case, it's really the method, and then technology serves the method and not the other way around.
I see. So
we have to have the technology, but it's first and foremost the IP and how we teach it. And then we build the technology to serve that idea.
I see. So your product is basically developed in accordance with the plan that was set out in the intellectual property, in the patent application as you filed it.
Precisely.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's talk a little bit about being in Israel. You're in Israel. You're an Israel startup. You had mentioned the Israel Innovation Authority. How has being in Israel impacted the development of your company?
Well, it's born and raised. So, so first, I think it's interesting because it's impacted our technology in the sense that, first of all, I think there's something unique about Israel about trying new technologies. They're very open to it. When we came to organizations, Ronnie and myself, and we said, here, we've got this new idea. You want to try it out? It was like, sure. Is this going to work? Is this going to be okay? And they were very happy to try and to help. And I think that's something about the entrepreneurial spirit in Israel, that opening doors, that trying, that adventurous thing. So I think for us, that was very important. I think that the war had a big impact also on our work. When the war broke out, because the hospital systems were down and the educational systems were down. So we decided to open wide for free of use for 6 months to parents at home. Amazing. And we iterated the program. We were very much B2B focused up until that point. And we saw that parents need to use this at home on phones because not everybody has a tablet. And so we did quick adjustments as much as we could to bring it to parents at home and to teach them how to do these life skills. So for instance, the first thing that we dealt with was actually transitioning to the safe rooms when there were alarms.
Because so just for our listeners, we're talking about essentially bomb shelters that people have in their houses or right outside of their houses.
Yeah. That
in the case of a missile attack, which many parts of Israel have experienced over the course of the last year and a half, including myself this morning in where I live. There's a safe room that children and everyone in the house has to manage to find their way to. And I guess with children with autism or with undergoing rehabilitation, there might be significant difficulties in getting to that safe room.
Exactly. And that was the first thing we addressed. And the second was because so many people were evacuated from their homes at that time, children were not willing to leave the hotel rooms they were in, or children were not willing to go down to dinner, or if they were really located in a new place, they were not willing to go inside the new kindergarten, and so on and so forth. So we did that for 6 months. So I think that, living in this reality and living in Israel has its impact on startups as well, because we live here. We are an international company and we are looking to the international, but for us, we always keep base here. It's part of home.
And it seems like these difficult times have also allowed you to further develop your product to different areas or different customers, right?
One of the things that we learned, for instance, during the wartime, and that was our maybe biggest revelation, is once you open up a platform, you don't know who's going to come on it. And we suddenly saw 30 and 40-year-olds with special needs coming onto the platform.
Okay.
And we said, is this going to work for grown-ups? We were like very, very focused on children up until that point. And suddenly we saw this, really? It was like, I looked at this and said, wow. And we started looking also, Ronnie and myself, and how can we help maybe older age groups? Because when you look at transitioning like to the workspace when they're older, so that's something we started to understand when this happened. And also how to use it on phones, how to use it in the home. And one thing that happened that was significant is that while we were very B2B focused up until that point, we today open up the platform so every therapist can also send wide to the parents at home if they need specific help in specific areas. So that was to us, like you said, learning from the Israeli reality, but implementing it in different other areas as well.
Let's talk about getting your product to the market, how that happened, and was that difficult?
Yes, because it's difficult to take a product out of the market. I think for us, the biggest challenge was to help people see and believe in something new, in a new way of learning. Because for us, for our specific product, the children themselves use it. That means that the end user, after all the chain of the hospital, the therapist, the doctors, the parents, and so on, the tablet needs to reach the child. The child sees himself, and he's the one who's learning the skill. Nobody's teaching him. That's the idea. And that was and still is a challenge for us, because we need to teach the adults how to use it. And then they need to trust it enough to give it to a 2-year-old. Because imagine at the end of the day, a 2-year-old is sitting with a tablet and seeing himself. So I think for us, that was really the biggest challenge. And also because we needed to learn how children use it and how therapists use it in real life. So, and we're doing that. And in Israel, it's one way. by the way. And in the US, it's different.
Why is that? What's the reason for the difference?
I think it's also mainly a reason of structure, of how the systems themselves are structured in an organization point of view. The systems in Israel are very public, and in the US, there's a lot of private. So it's just structured differently on how can this reach the child in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm. So where do you see WIDE in a year from now or in 5 years from now?
That's two answers. In a year from now, I see us growing both in Israel and going through the pilots that we're already having and implementing it, more children and having more impact. I think that's the first thing we want to do. In 5 years, I believe WIDE would really be a behavioral tool for teaching. That means that children will be able to go on WIDE and learn different life skills that will really make them independent as they grow up. And I think, and the way I look at it, it will revolutionize even what age children are starting to learn and acquire these life skills, because it's going to be accessible to every child. And it's very, very personalized to the difficulties of that specific child. So any therapist or any parent who's dealing with a challenge or challenges of a child will be able to go on the platform, customize how this child is going to learn this life skills, give it to the child, and the child will be able to learn it. And if we look forward in 5 years, I believe this is a method that will also be applicable to other forms of challenges, PTSD, for instance. That's one with adults.
Sure.
So I think with that's the way we will go.
That's definitely a big problem all over the world, but also here in Israel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any tips for founders who are starting out? You know, where were you when you were thinking about this this idea, and what advice would you give to yourself from back then?
Well, like I said, running myself did not come from the entrepreneurial space. I think that's a plus, and that's also a minus, because we had a big learning curve in so many areas. You don't even know what this journey is going to take you through and what you need to learn. But the plus is it was like, oh, sure, we can do this. So I think that's both. I think if I had to say something to other entrepreneurs, it would be to hang in there. It's a bumpy ride. It's a really bumpy ride, and just to believe it's going to happen. So if it's not, and there's always a solution, like to any problem, there's always a solution.
Okay. I could tell that you're an optimistic person, but now
I have to be in this from the therapeutic sense. If I won't believe that the children can do it, it's somebody needs to believe the children can do it.
So I guess being a therapist really and being a startup founder, there's a lot in common.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, I think that also for Ronnie and myself, we understand that if there are difficulties and challenges, it's just a matter of how do you teach differently? How do you learn differently? There has to be another way to do this.
Okay. So Rinat, thank you very much. I enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot.
Very much.
I hope my listeners also enjoy, and wishing you and WIDE a lot of success.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Rinat Hitelman, the co-founder of WIDE Therapy. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There are many more to come. Do you have a great innovation or startup idea? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by going to our website, jmbdavis.com. And if you go to jmbdavis.com/startup, you'll see we have a special site specifically made for startups to help startups protect their innovations. Please be in touch with us and find out how we can help you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode.